right, we're live. Thank you, JP, for coming on House Advisors Live. I'm excited to dig in a little bit on your whole agency journey. For those who are tuning in, JP is the CEO and founder of Power Shifter. They're a digital transformation agency, and I know you're basically kind of a serial entrepreneur. This isn't your first rodeo, so I'm really excited to kind of dig in and learn more about your background and journey. Um, yeah, so thanks for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, I guess the first place I wanted to start, I like asking people kind of what made you venture into the agency world in the first place. Usually, people have a pretty interesting path that led them this direction.
Well, interesting that you bring this up because actually we're going to be switching some of our positioning based on that journey. I've the internal team knows the journey and the reasons why I started it because a lot of our internal processes of how the agency runs was created because I was a client. I was a client on a large brand team here at one of the top largest telcos. So I was on the digital brand team, and we worked with the global agencies. And part of my job was on that brand team was to ensure that all the agencies that were working for the various divisions we were adhering to the brand and we're sticking to the story. It's a brand that is also well known and well liked. So the challenge I had though was I really didn't like the way in which quite often we were treated by a lot of agencies. Sort of the agency knows best, and the other aspect was that a lot of it was chaotic, and I just thought, there's got to be a better way. So we're kind of changed a little bit of our positioning, which is we're an agency created by clients for clients, all the best of what an agency has, and none of the worst. So my journey was on day one. I started the agency Power Shifter with a few key principles, which was early and often, and sometimes ugly, avoiding ta-da moments at all costs, because I was in the room so many times with those big ta-da moment decks that they would show us the big idea, and there's a 50-50 chance that it was the right idea. And then also what I found was agencies never, and this isn't all, but in my experience, a lot of agencies never tapped into the expertise of the clients. It was like, we got this, we know you're busy, we got this. And quite often we are busy and have agencies as clients because we are. However, as much as we may be busy, we're also the subject matter experts. And we felt that as much as we don't want to do the creative as a client, we still didn't feel that, and I didn't feel quite often that we were tapped enough. So our second pillar that we started out with on day one, which was direct to expert, our experts or agency experts and client experts co-creating together for exponential results. So was the journey. Was I went from being a client to creating an agency that I thought would solve client needs slightly different.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned kind of the big idea issue, and I think the other thing you mentioned, those things probably dovetail nicely with each other because it's like if people aren't listening to the brand, but then they're presenting a big idea for the brand, they're coming into it without having enough information or background with an idea that's probably more likely to fail because they haven't really done their research, right?
Yeah, and I think, and this is not any one agency's challenge. It's just been the ecosystem. And if we go back to you know, the 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 big creative director concepts from at agencies of Madison Avenue from the 50s and 60s, the Don Draper, that top down. There's a dude, typically, or dudes more often than not, guys that were running the big ideas with their teams, and they would come in and sort of the knight on shining armor concept. And I had come from more of an agile, let's do things together, let's test, let's iterate, and see what works and what doesn't work, and wanted to move in that direction. And what we found is that it really resonates with clients. Even if they don't know that that's necessarily why they've come to us, the net result is, we just did a retro with a client from one of the top 5 apparel brands in the world on Monday, and I was shown the Post-its from the retro we did with them, and it highlights a lot of these things. We listen. They get to participate in ideas coming together, and that we're not making assumptions. It's resonated. And when you talk about growth, our client relationships are typically long because we coexist with them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the better aligned you are with them, the more they're going to want to keep you around. They usually want to churn uh, if there's some sort of mismatch or they don't feel like they're being heard or something like that. So, well, backing up, I mean, I'm sure to get to the point you are today has not been without its, um, detours and roadblocks, things like that. What sort of lessons or mistakes have you made along the way, and what advice would you give to other agency founders to help them not make the same mistakes?
I think being okay with making mistakes. Um, it took me a long, long time to get comfortable with the term fail fast and fail often. And it has come out of the Silicon Valley and the startup, but it has permeated many industries now. And I think it took me far too long to get comfortable with that idea. And part of it, I don't think it's necessarily my fault, but we are raised from day one taught that not to make a mistake, and when you make a mistake, you're punished in one form, or you don't get something, or goal and throughout school is to not make mistakes, and
Yeah.
so and you when you decide to start a business or become an entrepreneur, and you read the books that say fail fast, fail often, it's hard to get your head around it because the how you may have it defined, all the biases that we grow up with. So my
Mhm.
biggest mistake was not owning that concept and taking the failures to heart and not moving on. I think the second mistake within that was holding on to things too long before adjusting. If it's not working, they say fail fast, meaning small failures, not catastrophic ones. And if you do wait too long to move on and say this is a failure or it's not working, move on, it goes from a small failure to a near catastrophic failure, which in 2018, because of my mindset, that nearly happened. So my biggest thing was getting okay with failings and reframing it to something around learnings, right?
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. I know in one agency I was in, it was a conversion optimization agency, and so when you did A/B tests, you had winners, and people might say, "Oh, you might have winners and losers," but honestly, even the losing tests, you could learn something from, and so it was insightful and it was helpful to even have something where it didn't get the results that you wanted. And it's true just as much in real life as it is when you're A/B testing something.
Yeah, and you have to start to create a culture within that's okay with it, and also know when to pull the plug, and it's usually probably sooner than you think.
Yeah,
But as
absolutely.
humans, we are always like, well, maybe we just try this, and maybe it is just going to work. And part of that's ego, and part of that's the way in which we are all raised, especially I guess in a North American culture, is success to try to make something to succeed versus making it failing at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know a lot of agency owners would be very interested in just understanding. I mean, you've been very successful. You're a multi-million dollar agency that you've built. Um, what sort of strategies would you share, just that would have been most effective for you in building the client base that you have? I know it's a lot of also like prestigious brands. Um, what insights would you share there?
Well, there's been this. I think from the agency owners that I've been connected with through various associations, the Bureau of Digital being one of them. I think a lot of what used to work isn't necessarily working, and a lot of us are readjusting. So, if you'd asked me 2 years ago what was, it would have been a different answer. And um, we had always worked on, like so many agencies, delivering great work and getting referrals out of it, and good referrals and long relationships. Um, I think that what's changing is the need for more outbound marketing and more positioning. We've positioned ourselves as we have currently today, which is, we cut a bunch of services back in 2018. We did more marketing. We were more of a digital agency that did websites. We did digital marketing. I think that when we made the change to become a product shop and focus only on digital products, software, and websites, it took a while for the message to start to resonate. But as many agency consultants will say, whether you're going for vertical specialty or specialty for skills, I think that was an important move. I'm not a fan of vertical integration. I know that that's recommended almost every agency consultant book, podcast, and that one of the first things they say is to go to, what are you good at? Go to a vertical specialty. One of the challenges was in the past that we had been a vertical specialist for telecommunications that they don't consider or don't acknowledge out loud is that the burden for agencies that specialize in a vertical there is a burden, and the burden is churn. Churn on talent is a burden, and if you're okay with a higher churn rate and the expenses that come with a churn rate on staff that get bored, that's a downside. I'm not saying don't do it, because a lot of people have had success, but one sort of underreported aspect of being a vertical specialist is the fact that agency personnel typically join agencies for variety. That's just who it attracts, because you're doing different kinds of projects and different things. And when you're in a vertical space and solving the same problem continuously, because that's the thing that works in that space, it does increase churn. And I think the average churn cost is somewhere around $30,000 per person. And so that's something that we decided to get out of, and so we've focused more on becoming product specialists, and we've now got some tech stack specialties which we're doing and growing our partnerships with likes of Contentful, Vercel, Sanity. So that's something that we've chosen to specialize in, was a tech and specialty in products as opposed to vertical. So I think specializing is important, but whether you do vertical or you choose one of the other ways to specialize, I think it's important to try to not be all things to all people. So when we cut off our marketing services and analytic services, that definitely helped us be able to talk about ourselves more specifically of who we are and what we're good at.
Yeah. Let's unpack that a little bit. I mean, can you tell a little bit more about what led to you deciding that sort of narrowing or focusing needed to happen, and kind of maybe some of your thought process? Because I'm sure there's other agencies out there that are somewhere in that same sort of journey and are probably asking a lot of questions, and you might, know maybe some of the better questions to ask.
Well, most agencies are bootstrapped, and that they're not funded, so they have to make money quickly. And so a lot of agencies are also started by those that were frustrated without being at another agency that may have not been well run. But most people don't go to agency operations school, and so when you start, money is important. Money solves all problems, right? And so what we were finding is we were saying yes to a lot of these, a lot of things that because it's money in the door, but there's bad money and good money. And when you start to just say yes to all these things, you dilute what you're good at. You also dilute your message. And there's a lot of little projects and little things that are just not good money. And so I think one of the hardest things for agency owners when there's money knocking at the door, because you need it, is to have the ability to say no. And you have to do a lot of things in order to say no. Don't overstaff full-time employees. Find that balance. But saying no to the wrong kind of money is one of the toughest things that agency leadership and owners have to do. It's the first thing they need to get a stomach for.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's not easy.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be hard. Well, and there's probably a little bit of trial and error that happens too. You learn it. Basically, it's one of those things, fail fast, learn it as quickly as you can so that you can adjust, because the longer you go down that road, the bigger you get where you're trying to be all things to all people. probably the worst pipeline you're going to have, and the more you're going to be, I don't know, burning out your client or your employees potentially. I don't know, but I could see it kind of leading down a dangerous path the longer you wait to do it.
Yeah, and you just become a generalist, and it's the jack of all trades, master of none is something that I think holds true. We look to solve that problem with partnering with other agencies that have other specialties that we bring to the table and are transparent about it. We don't white label. We would bring, if we're going to do content, we'll bring a partner in like content and brand. Say this is our content partner that needs for an aspect, because it goes back to our concept of direct to expert. If our experts and our client experts, if we believe in that for what we do, digital product design and development, why wouldn't we bring experts in that all they do every day is, if it's content or if it's performance marketing, they live and breathe it every day. We're not going to bring a contractor in, and because of it on the website, say, oh, we also do analytics. You're probably going to fail at it anyways, because you're going to under deliver something that's not very good. And is it really worth the money? It's a short term gain, but probably not a long term one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, you mentioned, I mean, we talked about positioning, focusing, kind of all these sort of words that mean similar sorts of things. Once you figure out kind of where that sweet spot is for your agency, what has been your experience in like effectively communicating that to the world, like communicating your unique value prop?
I think that's a. I'm still learning. I'm still learning that one, I would say, and we're going to be repositioning ourselves in the next couple of weeks. We've been working on repositioning ourselves as much as our positioning is, and we've narrowed down that we're product in product space, um, and that we don't do all the ancillary services. We do great web applications, mobile apps, and websites. It's still not enough from a positioning perspective, because I think there's probably, when I look at some of the directories, we've probably got 3,000 competitors in the North American space. So
Hmm.
I've been working on what does that mean, and we don't want to go to market saying that we're contentful specialists only. Again, that is a specialty, but the total addressable market is pretty small if you decide to go with a tech stack, or if you go with a really established tech stack. You're now in with a whole bunch of partners on platforms that probably have more money than you, deeper pockets, and it gets noisy again. So
Hmm.
we're shifting our perspective. We're an agency that was created. I was a client, as I noted. So we're going to go to market an agency created by clients for clients, and so that's where we're going to see if that gets that brings the signal out of what makes us different. And there's a whole bunch that goes with that. So I say that I'm still learning on positioning. It's a continuous thing. I will also I will also admit that positioning an agency and or any services business. I just read another positioning book called Obviously Awesome. It's a well-respected book, and I recommend it for those that have never read books on positioning, and there are a few that it's 90% about product positioning and 10% or less, 10% about services positioning. It's really hard to position a services company, and I think that's one of the reasons why consultants push services businesses to focus on a vertical, because it's one of the most straightforward ways to position your expertise in a certain area. It is a tough place to the agency space to find positioning, and I think it's probably one of the biggest struggles agencies have in marketing generally, and are owners that I've had. So I'm still learning,
Yeah.
and we're going to go to market with this by clients for clients, because it is radically different. And we're looking. The other thing is that as an agency, we've become a bit of a turnaround agency, not by design, but we've worked with a lot of clients that have come in absolutely burned. They have a platform that's half built or built poorly, doesn't work, and they come in really jaded. And we've been able to turn them from skeptics to true believers and big brand ambassadors for us. So we took that signal and said, well, why don't let's experiment by finding those out there that may be looking for an agency that understands clients a little more. So we're going to test that in the next couple of weeks, and so I'm still learning.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a very clear pain point in the market, where it's like, that's probably a trigger where it's like they're going to start looking. And if you're a person who has that track record of like, hey, if somebody else dropped the ball, like we can help you pick it up and run with it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I was
Well,
reading just an article yesterday by one of the bureau members at Prometheus Research talking about if you think your persona buyer is looking to solve SEO problems, they're probably not. It's bigger than that. It's actually a great article, and had me thinking. Yeah, it just our personas that we build are quite often dream personas. And what I've done just recently was I took our dream persona, and I used the GPT to give me the less dream persona, which was what's the opposite of this dream client that we are all hypothetically searching for, because they rarely come in the door. So ours is a CIO. So I had created the less than optimal CIO. What does their day look like? And what are, top down? They're always right. They're insecure because ultimately, or they've been challenged. Those are real. Those are real clients that have got a lot of things that are real. So we're experimenting with a reverse persona that is paired with the perfect persona, so that we can seek those that are they have real problems, not just trying to solve SEO, but actually trying to solve relationship challenges they've had in the past with agencies, or agencies that are always late or don't or under deliver. So I think that there's some interesting things to challenge. But I've always been a bit of a maverick. So
yeah. Well, that's probably a good segue into talking about kind of client satisfaction in general. I think there's the part of the journey which is bringing the client in. When finding the right client or potential client, selling to them, and then becoming a client. But then it's kind of the long haul of keeping them satisfied, and retaining them. So, can you talk a little bit about what what sort of deliberate efforts you guys have put in place to retain clients and to maybe set yourselves up for success earlier on in the process as well?
I can, and I can tell you that those principles that we started the agency with, when we blinked a few years ago, and we were told that we needed to beef up and change the way in which we do client services to be more of a traditional client services, that there's a heavy up where they're really there's a gate, or they're a heavy presence on the strategy side, and to start to remove our direct to expert concept and move our team back. When we did that, based on outside consultants' recommendation, within a few short months, things went off the rails quickly, and so we made some drastic changes quickly. We pulled the team because the sentiment with our clients that we had, and the sentiment within the team, was not good. So we pulled the team, and they said we need to go back to our roots, which is we work with clients co-creating. We need to have our team members working directly with them. We have to get rid of the bottlenecks again, and having promises made that we can't keep, because the client services has just been saying yes and not really understanding what is capable. So when we moved back to our position of being more inclusive and working, co-creating with our clients, we saw the relationships radically improved. We saw the team satisfaction and happiness go up. And if the team's satisfied and happy and working with the clients, they're going to feel it, and you're going to get some good things. So, from our personal perspective, I think being able to work directly with our clients in the way in which we do has been helpful. And I think that there's a fine line with not going to the agency knows best, but also getting the trust. I say to our team, when we sign a client, our number one job within the first minute of that signing is to get trust with our clients going, and whatever it takes. We have a deliberate onboarding process. Because I was a client, I've been able to say a lot of clients have never worked with an agency, and no one ever asked that. They just assume they know how to work with an agency. So we have now got a program to make sure that our onboarding for clients is much more thorough, is more empathetic and proactive. So before a workshop, our team will create a Loom video as what to expect tomorrow. They walk them through the board, how to use Miro, and what to do, what to expect. And they get a primer, because there's nothing worse than a client coming in. It's hard to get them all into a room, virtual or otherwise, and if they can't use the interface for 20 minutes in Miro, and you need them thinking about their ideas to come in, they won't raise their hand. They'd be embarrassed sometimes, and so you don't get as much accomplished. So I think empathy towards the clients, making no assumptions that they have worked with agencies or are in a culture that can raise a hand to say, I don't know. Because quite often client side, especially with large enterprise, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of pushing and shoving. And if they're on a call with some, with leadership or with their, if they're who they report to, and they don't know something, they don't usually ask. So the goal is to really get everybody comfortable and get into a place in which we make no assumptions that clients know how to build software if they haven't clearly stated it, or all of the intricacies that go with it. So empathetic towards clients' needs has been one of the things that we do well. And when we veered away from it and went to more traditional advertising style of client services, it became the chaos in which I had experienced at other agencies, either as a client or working with them, working for them. So I think empathy and listening to clients and not assuming has been a good way to which to grow those relationships.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that's kind of a common theme throughout a lot of these things with the agency, is like having more of a posture of, we don't know what we don't know, so we're going to come in and be curious, not know-it-alls, and be a good investigator or doctor who's asking the right questions to diagnose something, rather than just kind of prescribing without doing the research up front.
And I would say that the agencies in which I'm referring to, I don't see a lot of that that negative side of things in the bureau agencies or digital agencies. I think that what I'm referring to is more the traditional advertising style of agencies. I think culturally, digital had always been the middle child, as it were, from the 2000s, and we had to accommodate and prove how and be curious and move. And over the time, as we're making more products and services, we've adopted a lot of the agile philosophies that have come out of Silicon Valley and tech startups. And so just in those inherent pieces, I think digital agencies are, generally speaking, already in a better place to be here and have a mindset for being more inclusive. Again, those are just my biased points of view, but it's anecdotal. But I've sensed it within the bureau agencies that this is a common theme, that they're more working with as opposed to working for clients.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Well, honestly, this next question could have a lot to do with that. How do you think about sales and marketing and just client acquisition from that sort of mindset of being curious and learning?
We're radically looking at how to do it differently, because we were a referral-based growth program for 15 years, and with the change in the market, and with the market being more crowded with agencies that offer what we do, we have started outbound. I've created a whole outbound program to be honest, based on platforms, and done all the things that you would do, warming up email URLs and sending out outbound sequences within just the last few weeks. I've also recognized that that's not the best use of my time. It was never really a long-term play for me, but I wanted to see, is this a way? So we are radically changing from where we were to becoming, I want to do the right outbound, which is targeted and not just a shotgun approach, which is I've been meeting with a few qualified agencies that do that to take over for me, and as well as we have started to do the paid search engine play to be able to get leads for some of our specialty services. So definitely taking a more proactive approach. And I think I was very resistant, I would say stingy on marketing budgets and I've come to realize that the numbers I think that have floated around 7 to 12% of gross revenue, those are real, and they can be hard for an agency to stomach, especially if you're not a marketing agency, and so you're not playing in that space.
Mm-hmm.
So we're readjusting what proactive marketing looks like, and looking at it from a multi-tier perspective. So outbound, qualified outbound, search engine SEO. I've already been doing a lot of content, starting podcasts as well, called The Brand Experience, and so putting it into like four pillars. And I think agency owners, if you're reluctant like me, you've got to put out more dough, and not just go with one channel, and diversify. And it can be hard if you're a small agency. If you got 20 or less, who does that? Can you do all of them at once? Probably not. But I think that the landscape's changing radically, and the referral-based piece, which is part of it. You've got to grow your accounts. A lot of agencies like mine, we were able to thrive for 15 years doing it that way, but with budgets changing post-COVID, lots of things are changing. Is AI helping people bring things in-house? Not sure, but I think, have to be much more proactive and look at multi-channel, and consider outbound as much as, I'm Canadian, we typically have a different mindset to sales. It's doing outbound and knocking on doors is sort of culturally just not something that I think as Canadians are as comfortable with. So apologetic, don't want to get in the way, but we have to change that. And I think if it's done right, and you target right, and you're not annoying, we'll see. I'm just starting it now, so we'll see how we'll talk in a few weeks. Or
Yeah,
months.
totally. I hear you. Well, another type of acquisition, and that's like your team acquisition, top talent for your team. How do you think about bringing on the right talent? And can you share any insights for other agency owners around finding and vetting good quality people for your team?
I would say in the mid 2000s, we went to. I read a book. I was in an EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and did a lot of learning there. And one of the books that was recommended to me was Who, Hiring A Players. And it's interesting. They go through like the 12 ways in which most people hire. And when you're reading in the first of the book, and you'll read it, if you've been in business for a while, you go through them and you say, yeah, I tried that. Yeah, I tried that. And they have a way in which hiring A players, it's a framework in which we've adopted. I recommend, it's not the most exciting book, but when people ask me, like, what 5 books would you recommend to me for going into business, I would say that the Who, Hiring for A Players, is probably a book you should pick up. It takes it from the abstract on hiring to more of a repeatable process. So our process is repeatable. But I think the other piece to that is you have to be known culturally as a place that people want to work. And we have a very low churn rate here and a very high engagement rate, and our ENPS scores that we do quarterly are very high. And I think part of it is the processes which I've mentioned. When our team members are working directly with clients, and if you're a junior and one of your ideas gets put into the final product, and you're working with them, that's a good way to maintain talent. And when you've got a great reputation as a place to work culturally, which takes up a significant investment, I would say invest in a healthy culture. Whatever that culture is, it's different from place to place. As long as how you define it and your team defines it as healthy, that word of mouth in and of itself will help attract the right talent. I've heard a lot of negativity around like trying to look at Glassdoor. Most of the time when I hear negativity around it, I've gone to their Glassdoor and it's been in the garbage dump. And so I understand it. When we ask candidates how and who, they came here, I would say a good chunk of the time Glassdoor is noted. So even if you think Glassdoor is frivolous and we don't like it, it's like Yelp. We may, as a business owner, you may not like it. Glassdoor, keeping that up, and we don't do it proactively. We don't ask for reviews, but we just do the good work of keeping a healthy culture. That'll be part of it, word of mouth, and then having others. A lot of our best employees that have come in and team members have been in referrals from others within.
Yeah. I mean, I know that when I've looked for jobs, Glassdoor's definitely been on there because you want to know kind of what you're signing up for and if there's any sort of curveballs that you should expect. And also just maybe if there's any sort of agreement or disagreement, if somebody says that there's something that's true about the company and then you ask about that in the interview process, are they going to own it? Or are they going to kind of spin it, and then that can maybe tell you some things
Yeah, it's
about
a
the
good.
company.
I think that if you want to know what a culture of a company is, you'll know quite quickly whether it's healthy. You won't necessarily know the culture, but you'll know whether it's a healthy one or a toxic one
Yeah, absolutely.
from Glassdoor.
Well, I mean, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I've honestly, I've learned a ton. I think anyone who's tuning into this is going to get quite a bit from this. If people want to follow up with you, just stay in touch and follow what you're putting out there, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
I'm publishing a lot on LinkedIn right now. I find that that's been a great channel for me to publish the things that we do here, the things that thought leadership and findings on LinkedIn. So it's just JP Holecka. LinkedIn/user JP Holecka is probably the best place if you want to see what we're all about and what I'm thinking, and I'm putting it there. It's probably a good place.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. This has been really insightful and appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for hosting, and I apologize again for being late on that one with the technical challenges we had.
Oh, no worries.
All right.
All right.
Thanks
Have a good
again.
one.
All right. Bye.